Good morning, class and friends. Thank you for joining me today. As most of you guys know, March is the third month of the year on the Gregorian calendar. As many of you probably don't know, it was once celebrated the first month of the year and the start of the new year in the early Roman calendar. And almost 25 years ago, it was also the month that I was born. So I am excited to share some interesting facts with you guys about March of 1991. For starters, social media has never been as big as it is now. But back in March of 1991, there were several celebrities and athletes that made their presence in the mainstream media. For example, both Janet Jackson and Michael Jackson signed huge record deals in March of 1991. Janet Jackson signed a $40 million record deal with Virgin Records, and Michael Jackson signed a $65 million deal with Sony Records. Now, for most of us today, that's a huge amount. Most of us will probably never see $65 million, but back then it was absolutely unheard of. Another interesting event that happened in the mainstream media on March 18th of 1991 was the Fight of the Year, and that took place in Las Vegas and was aired on pay-per-view. That fight was between Mike Tyson and his opponent, Donovan Ruddock. Mike Tyson did go on to win that match in the 7th round against Donovan Ruddock. Also, here's an interesting fact for all of you Michigan sports fans. In March of 1991, the Northern Michigan hockey team did go on to win its first NCAA Division I hockey tournament. They did go on to beat Boston University 8-7 in overtime. Now, along with the social media of celebrities and athletes, there were also tragedies that hit America pretty hard in March of 1991. For example, on March 3rd of 1991, there were several LAPD officers that were videoed beating a motorist severely, and his name was Rodney King. After the severe beating of Rodney King and the acquittal of these officers, riots broke out all throughout South Central Los Angeles. And because of these riots, ultimately 50 people lost their lives, over 2,000 people were injured, and almost 10,000 people were arrested because of these riots. On the same day, over 1,000 miles away in Colorado Springs, Colorado, United Airlines Boeing 737, Flight 585, crashed in Colorado Springs, and it killed all 25 passengers on the plane. Now, the crash was believed to be caused by a rudder control system failure. And as we all have seen recently, there are many things that can take place to cause a crash of an airline. Now, just shy of 3 weeks later, on March 23rd of 1991, there was devastating weather that hit the Tennessee and Kentucky area. We had about 3 tornadoes that ripped through Nashville, killing 5 people. Now, that specifically hits home to me because about 4 years ago, I did lose my house to a tornado in Alabama. Now, that is one of the scariest things to me is weather because it cannot be controlled. Lastly, in 1991, the cost of living was significantly lower than it is now. Compared to our fluctuating gas prices these days, back in March of 1991, the gas prices were around $1.12. Back then, that seemed unaffordable. To us now, we would probably drive a few hours to find a gas station for $1.12 for fuel. And not only were the gas prices so low, but you could also buy a brand new house for $120,000. Now, with me being in the market now to buy a new house, I wish I could find one for $120,000. Unfortunately, the houses popping up around us are around $300,000 to $400,000. And that, these days, is unaffordable for most people. But with the average income for people only being around $30,000, the cost of living being so low makes complete sense. Now, throughout the years, many things have changed. However, as we continue to learn, history does have a way of repeating itself. Public figures will continue to be followed in social media. Record deals and contracts will continue to increase, and unfortunate tragedies, like the ones that happened in March of 1991, will continue to happen. And I think that all of us have seen those lately with the riots and the police battery and assaulting and the flights that have disappeared or crashed, and definitely the severe weather that has hit many states and affected many people. These tragedies will continue to happen. But the one thing that I don't think we will see repeat itself is the cost of living. Although I'm sure we would all love to see the cost of living, or at least gas prices, go back down to $1.12. I highly doubt that was going to happen. However, as the cost of living goes up, so does the average income for most people. So I think in the end,